So I'll read each sentence and then we'll see whether we understand it or not. Okay, so it is our first premise that the absolute is the supreme reality. So this is the premise. Premise means there is no way of proving. We take it as a reality. We start our logical reasoning with this. We accept it. Okay. Good morning, Archana Ji.
Good morning, Rangada.
Yeah. So page 494, Archana Ji, it is our first premise.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the word premise you can you can you can substitute it with hypothesis. It is something, or in mathematics you use the word theorem. A theorem is something that you start with without proof. Okay, you accept it on faith, and then you start building your system. And if you see that there is data which is contradicting that hypothesis or the premise, then you change it. Okay, the word premise also can mean your flat or your house, but that is premises. Normally, you use the word in plural, but premise means the hypothesis in the logical sequence of what you call uh, there is a induction and a deduction. Just 1 minute, I am getting a phone call. Just 1 minute. Hello. Yes, yes. Yeah. Anand, yesterday, actually for 2 days, Dilip has been telling that we should go and see the basement. So when can we go today? Yeah, around the say, let us say 9:30, is it possible? Well, 10 o'clock is okay if it is difficult for you. You bring the key and come to my place. From there we will go to the basement there. Okay? Okay. Okay. We make it in between because 9:30 my classes may continue. So quarter to 10. Yeah. I always, every day I have classes. That's not a problem. Even now I'm in the middle of a class. Okay, right. Yes. Okay. All right, Anand. Okay. Right. Bye. Bye. Yeah. So that's right. So
I have an objection.
tell me.
You said about premise, and it is just like a theorem which doesn't have to be proved. But
That's
no,
right.
you have to prove a theorem also on the basis of the properties of the angles and
Yeah, but
so
sometimes
even a theorem has to be proved.
that's right. But a theorem is something you start with without proof.
Yeah.
And then sometimes you may not be able to prove it also. Okay. So in fact that there are some mathematical problems which were not proved, but after a long time they got proof of it. Okay. But proof is a very relative thing because proof is mental and mental is not the absolute reality. The reality is even higher up. So what you call proof is a very debatable question. Okay, so anyway, at that level, yes, you can you can prove. But a theorem is necessarily starting with a hypothesis, and a hypothesis or a premise. Premise is the one. Okay, so
We assume something, Rangada, in theorem. So something is assumed.
Pardon? I didn't follow. Archana Ji? Hello, Archana Ji? Oh,
And then it is proved. That is how theorem. It starts with a hypothesis or
Your internet is fluctuating, Archana Ji. Not very clear what you're saying. In fact, now I'm not hearing you at all. You have muted yourself. Now you have unmuted yourself, but still I'm not hearing.
Yes, Sangatam, I problem, I realize. So
Yeah.
it is kind of another internet problem. Continue, please.
Yeah, yeah. Acha, anyway, so we go on. Okay, I'll read the next phrase. So, it is our first premise that the absolute is a supreme reality. But the issue is whether all else that we experience is real or unreal. Okay, we agree that the ultimate reality, God is real. If you want to use a very unphilosophical word, God, then He is real. But what about all the rest? Is there something which is half real or totally unreal? That's the question. A distinction is sometimes made between being and existence, and it is supposed that being is real, but existence or what manifests as such is unreal. So let's look at what is meaning by being, okay, and existence. So when he's talking of being, you can think of it as Sat or self or Brahman, being in that sense, in the sense of Sat, self and Brahman. And existence you can take in the sense of the physical world, okay? Manifestation, cosmos, universe. So Brahman, even if we say that Brahman is real, is the manifestation in the physical world. Is it real or unreal? That's the question. He is actually summarizing what we have been discussing. And it is supposed that being is real, but existence or what manifests as such is unreal. But this can stand only if there is a rigid distinction, a cut and separation between the uncreated eternal and created existences. Now he is introducing another created and uncreated. That which is created, it starts its existence, but it also ends in the physical world. That is the nature of the world, transience, okay? Phenomenal, that which is comes into existence and disappears. But there is something which is uncreated, it is forever, it is fundamentally always existing. That's the divine element in you, and even the psychic being and the self. These are uncreated. That's why you sometimes use the word unborn. Okay, and in the Gita we have the word aja, not born. Okay, so that is the Brahman is self-created and it is uncreated, and the physical world is created. So a distinction is sometimes made between being and existence, and it is supposed that being is real but existence or what manifests as such is unreal. Now, this is the Mayavada philosophy and the Buddhistic philosophy. But what is Sri Aurobindo philosophy? Does he admit that the physical world is unreal? He says that in the physical world there are forms, and behind the form there is the divine reality which is lurking behind. Okay, in the Buddhistic philosophy, no, only the forms exist and they are unreal. In the Mayavada it is slightly different. Forms are there and the divine presence also is there, but the form is something that you are not seeing in the right way. You are seeing only the form and you are not seeing the reality behind. Sri Aurobindo is saying the form it is true that it is semi-real. It's not absolute unreality like in Buddhism, but it is semi-real. But the real existence is there in the physical world. Don't think that the physical world is unreal. But that's not the forms that you see. It is the divine presence behind the forms. Behind a tree, behind a stone, behind a creature, there is the divine presence lurking, hiding inside. You have to get that. You have to remove all the veils and see the reality lurking in the physical world. Okay. I have gone a little beyond, but that's what Sri Aurobindo is discussing. A distinction is sometimes made between being and existence. Being is the Brahman, the higher, and existence is the lower, the manifestation. And it is supposed that being is real, the higher is real, but the lower is unreal, or what manifests as such is unreal. But now this is Sri Aurobindo's view. But this can stand only if there is a rigid distinction, a cut and a separation between uncreated eternal and created existences. Are they really two different worlds altogether, or is there a connection? So Sri Aurobindo says there is a connection, and that connection is hidden in the lower. Okay, so the uncreated being can then be taken as alone real if you think that there is a cut between the two. Okay, that is the normal idea of many who experience the Brahman consciousness. That is so real that you think the physical world is unreal. This conclusion does not follow if what exists is form of being and substance of being. So let us say that the uncreated is formless and that is real. But when it manifests, it becomes form and there is a connection. The being, formless being, comes down and becomes form of being. Therefore, there is a reality. This conclusion that the world is unreal because there is no connection between the two, spirit and matter, there is no connection if you say, then you can take that stand. But our stand is different. We have said that the absolute is real, but when it manifests, it creates forms which can be considered unreal. But behind that unreality, there is a reality hiding behind. It would be unreal only if it were a form of non-being, asat, created out of the void, shunya. That's why the Buddhistic philosophy is very logical. They say it is not. Nothing exists, not even your soul. The ultimate reality is a nihil. Okay? So far as they are concerned, there is a truth, and because you do get liberation, and they are very happy with that. Okay, so everything is relative, na? So you can't say that Buddhist solutions are absolutely not valid. They are very valid for those who want to only get liberation. So if it were a non-being, asat, non-being in the sense that really it is non-being. We have discussed that many times. Non-being can be something which is without features, but which contains all features. That is one type of non-being. The other non-being is that there is really nothing in it. It is really empty. Okay. That is the idea of Buddhism, but that is not absolutely true because there can never be in the physical world and in spirit and matter, there can be nothing which is non-existent. The very nature of God is that He is there everywhere, omnipresent. Therefore, you can't say that non-existence is there anywhere at all. What seems to be non-existent, there is a reality behind, lurking. Created out of the void, shunya. The states of existence through which we approach and enter into the absolute must have their truth. For the untrue and unreal cannot lead into the real. There is a logic. If something is untrue, how can it lead you to the real? There must be a grain of reality, and that grain goes on when you climb from states of existence. States of existence, matter, life, mind, higher mind, element mind. These are the states of existence, like a staircase. Okay. More like a ramp, not a staircase. Okay. States of existence through which we approach and enter into the absolute must have their truth. Each one is true at its own level. That's what Sri is saying. For the untrue and unreal cannot lead into the real. But also, what issues from the absolute? Now he is saying going upwards, but now when coming down. But also what issues from the absolute coming down, what the eternal supports and informs and manifests in itself must have a reality. Now the other aspect, something which is real, if it is creating that, okay, it must have a reality. How can the real, the absolute, create an unreality? It's not possible. So, and he's using three words. Let's look at those three words. But also what issues from the absolute. The absolute issues from itself, its manifestation, makes forms. What the eternal supports and informs. So first of all, the transcendent is supporting. Then it is informing, that is the cosmic. And manifests in itself at the lowest level, the physical level, it must have a reality. So supporting, informing and manifesting. The word informing, don't get misled, going into a form, that's what it means by informing. Going into a form, okay, entering into a form, okay, and manifest in itself, must have a reality. In other words, the highest, level 3, level 2 in the cosmos and level 1 in the physical world, all are real in a relative manner. There is the unmanifest and there is the manifestation. The unmanifest is the Brahman and the manifestation is the physical world of matter, life, mind. But a manifestation of the real must itself be real. You can challenge that statement, but that's why it is based in spiritual experience. Okay, there is logic in the life divine. There is logic. Some people say there is no logic. It's all premises. They may have their own view. Okay, but it is true that, and Sridhar has admitted that. He says that life divine is based on experience, not on logic, although he uses logic in many places. Okay, so there is the unmanifest and there is the manifestation, but a manifestation of the real must itself be real. This statement he is making from experience. Okay, someone can challenge it. How do you say that? If the real is absolute, it must have a power to create also the unreal. You can argue it that way. So that's why it is based on experience, not logic. There is a timeless and there is a process of things in time. Process implies a sequence, okay? A process. There can be no process in something static. Process implies a movement. There is process of things in time, but nothing can appear in time unless it has a basis in the timeless eternal reality. So, if myself and spirit are real, my thoughts, feelings, powers of all kinds, which are its expressions, cannot be unreal. So Srimdu is connecting. He's saying, I can see clearly that there is a connection between the highest and the lowest. The idea that they are unconnected is not valid because you can go to a level of consciousness where you see the connection. My body, which is a form it puts out in itself and which at the same time it inhabits, cannot be a nothing or a mere unsubstantial shadow. That which is real is creating, it's a sea which is real is creating a wave, and the wave is real. It's true, it's in time, okay, time and space, but it is real in time and space. It is subject to time. It becomes real and then disappears. Not merely unsubstantial shadow. The sea is always reality. The only reconciling explanation is that timeless eternity and time eternity are two aspects of the eternal and absolute, and both are real, but in a different order of reality. There is a permanent reality and there is a time reality. There is a timeless reality and there is a time reality. What is unmanifest in the timeless manifests itself in time. Each thing that exists is real in its own degree of the manifestation, and it is so seen by the consciousness of the infinite. At every level, you see something which is valid at that level. It may not be valid at another level. This is true even in the physical world. No? We have seen that. When you are on the earth seems to be flat. Okay? And that's valid for you because you can behave in a way that the earth is flat. But when you go up, you see that the earth is not at all flat but round. Now that is the truth for you. Now it is different. So every time you go to another level, there is a different view and that is real at that level. That's what he's saying. Okay? Quite clear what he's saying. Only, as I said, question of experience and reality. Experience and logic. Logic is valid at the mental level, but it is not absolutely valid. Mental logic is not valid at the higher levels. You have to go to another logic. You have to go to the logic of the infinite. So, we can read the next para. All manifestation depends upon being. So, Archana, Yasmin is going to come to Pondi tomorrow, so she can read. Yasmin? Will you read?
That is not stop.
Yes, please.
Okay, go ahead.
All manifestation depends upon being, but also upon consciousness and its power or degree.
That's right.
For as is the status of consciousness, so will be the status of being. Even the inconscient is a status and power of involved consciousness in which being is plunged into another opposite state of non-manifestation, resembling non-existence, so that out of it all in the material universe may be manifested. So too the superconscious is consciousness taken up into an absolute of being. For there is a superconscious status in which consciousness seems to be luminously involved in being and as is unaware of itself. All consciousness of being, all knowledge, self-vision, force of being seem to emerge from that involved state or to appear in it. This emergence, in our view of it, may appear to be an emergence into a lesser reality. But in fact, both the superconscious and the consciousness are and regard the same real. There is also a status of the supreme in which no distinction can be made between being and consciousness. For they are too much one there to be thus differentiated. But this supreme status of being is also a supreme status of the power of being, and therefore the power of consciousness. For the force of being and the force of its consciousness are one there and cannot be separated. It is this unification of eternal being with the eternal consciousness force that is the status of the supreme Ishvara, and its force of being is the dynamics of the absolute. This status is not a negation of cosmos. It carries in itself the essence and power of all cosmic existence.
Yeah. Okay. So we have to understand the word being, then it becomes clear. Okay. So when he is talking of being, in the Satchidananda, remember Sat, Chit, Shakti, Ananda. There are four elements which are really not four but one. And it is not that they are all together, not in the sense of oneness that they are together. They are not together. They are involved in each other. It is one thing, but which is substance, which is consciousness, which is force, and also which is light. They are all one. So we have to understand the words, then it becomes very clear. Because otherwise the word being can be confusing. So when he is using the word being, he is meaning substance. Okay. At the lower level, substance is matter. And at the highest level, matter becomes the subtle substance, which is existence. Okay, so he uses the word existence for the subtlest of substance. We see also in the physical world that substance can have different grades. We have seen that. The air is also substance and it is subtler. Then there is also water, which is also substance and which is more flexible than matter. So if you take ice, this becomes very clear. Ice can be solid, substance, matter, it can be liquid, it can also be air, and it can be even non-air, that is the ether. So this is what he means. So now let's look at this sentence. All manifestation depends upon being, in other words, substance, but also upon consciousness and its power or degree. So now you have to understand what he's saying. There is a substance, but that substance is conscious. Okay, and depending on the consciousness and the degree of consciousness, its power or degree, the power can be more and can be less. That's why he's using the word power or degree. He is using the same word in degree. What is the quantity of consciousness goes on varying. That's what he's saying. Okay, the substance is there, and when the consciousness goes on varying, the substance also goes on varying because it is one. Okay, clear? So now he is going one step more. For as is the status of consciousness, at which level it is, so will be the status of being. According to what the consciousness is, so will be the substance. At the highest level, consciousness is full. Therefore, substance is absolutely subtle. Subtle and full. Then when it comes down, the consciousness reduces itself, and when it reduces itself, the substance starts becoming more and more dense. Okay. Finally, at the lowest level, substance becomes matter and consciousness has gone zero. So it is sort of inversely proportional to each other. The subtler the substance, consciousness is full. Density and consciousness are opposite to each other. At the highest level, density is zero, consciousness is full. Okay, as it keeps coming down, density increases, consciousness decreases. As it comes down to matter, consciousness is zero in a way of speaking, and density is full. So this is what he is saying. Okay, you have to understand this. Now, is that clear? If you understand the word being as substance, okay, as matter, then it becomes very clear. At the highest level, subtlest of substance, density is zero. So take density and consciousness, then it becomes very clear. They are opposite to each other. What I would say is inversely proportional. You use the word proportional, but inversely proportional, not positively proportional, okay, inversely. As density increases, consciousness decreases. Because in the physical world, you see matter seems to be absolutely non-existent. But that's not the reality. The reality is, in the matter, substance is, density is not 100% and consciousness is not zero, but consciousness is 0.00001 and matter, that is substance, is density is 99.99999. Okay, because if that is not there, then it can't come out. So the presence is there. Okay, this is what you have to understand. Okay, I think I put it in mathematical terms, it becomes easy to understand. Okay, for as is the status of consciousness, at which level you are, so will be the status of being. Okay, even the inconscient is a status and power of involved consciousness in which being is plunged into another and opposite state of non-manifestation, resembling non-manifestation, so that out of it all in the material universe may be manifested. So you need, for manifestation, you need the density of matter. That's why consciousness gets reduced. Okay? For there is a superconscious status, that's the Satchidananda, in which consciousness seems to be luminously involved in being. Okay, so consciousness seems to be luminous, full of light, and it is involved in subtle substance. They are all the same, as if unaware of itself. Now that's interesting. As if unaware of itself, you go back to that idea of the inward looking, the transcendental. What he is talking about here is the superconscious is transcendental. It is conscious only of itself, nothing else. It's light, condensed light, dense light. Okay, so it's not creating the world at all at that time. Okay, luminously involved in being, luminously involved in substance, and as if unaware of itself, as if unaware of itself. It is only aware of the light. All consciousness of being, all consciousness of substance, all knowledge, self-vision, force of being seem to emerge from that involved state or to appear in it. So that's another interesting thing. It is, you can see it as emerging, or you can say it's not emerging, but it is appearing in itself. This is also, there are two ways of seeing, and both can be valid for the mental being, but it's very difficult. When the Satchidananda is creating the world, is it creating the world out of itself, emerging, or is it creating within itself? Both are real. Okay, both can be imagined in our mind. Because when you think of Satchidananda creating the world, our normal idea is that it is creating out of itself. Because it is there static, and below it is coming and manifesting. It is out of itself. Actually, it's not out of itself. It is in itself. Both are valid way of looking at it. Okay. So, You can see that's why he's using the word emerging, seem to emerge from the involved state or to appear in it. Okay, to how to appear in it? The physical world is existing in Satchidananda. This emergence, in our view of it, may appear to be an emergence into a lesser reality. So the highest is absolutely real, and when it comes down, it may appear. If you are a Buddhist or a Mayavadi, you may say that it is coming into a lesser reality. It is less real than the higher. That's what Shankara also says. Paramarthika Satta and Vyavaharika Satta. Practical truth and eternal truth. There is a status of supreme in which no distinction can be made between being and consciousness. Matter and consciousness are absolutely the same at the highest level. Therefore, you can't call it matter. You have to use the word being or existence or substance. Okay. For they are too much one there to be thus differentiated. They are absolutely involved in each other. Consciousness is something which is fundamentally existing by itself. It is normal idea in our in science is that when life comes in, there is consciousness. Consciousness is defined as awareness. But awareness is not consciousness. Awareness is only one aspect of consciousness. Okay. This is what one has to understand. Consciousness is something fundamental. It exists by itself, just like matter. This is what science is now discovering. And very interestingly, they are discovering that. There is also a but the supreme status of being is also a supreme status of power of being. So he is saying that substance is not only consciousness, but it's also power, and it is also Ananda. Okay, he's not saying Ananda here, but he's saying so. There is also a status of the supreme in which no distinction can be made between being and consciousness. This is clear. Consciousness is a substance. For they are too much one there. They are too much one there to be thus differentiated. But the supreme status of being is also a supreme status of the power of being, Chit and Shakti. So Sat, Chit and Shakti. And therefore, the power of consciousness, but the force of being and the force of its consciousness are one there and cannot be separated. It is this unification of eternal being with the eternal consciousness force that is the status of the Supreme Ishvara. And its force of being is the dynamism of the Absolute, Chit Shakti. This status is not a negation of cosmos. It carries in itself the essence and power of all cosmic existence. Again, the idea of the seed and the tree. The seed seems to be devoid of the tree, but the tree is involved in it and can emerge. The only difference is that the seed is creating the tree out of itself, whereas in the other example of the Satchidananda, it is creating the tree in itself. That's the only difference. Okay? So, we have 10 minutes, 9 minutes actually. So, we can read the next paragraph. So, Shilpa, I did not wish you good morning because you came slightly late. I'm telling you good morning now. Yeah. So, now, who will read now? Archana, you will read? Or your internet is a problem, so maybe Sunki or Shilpa can read. Sunki, maybe you can read. Yeah.
Okay. Yes, I will read.
Okay, go ahead. But still, unreality.
But still, unreality is a fact of cosmic existence. And if all is the Brahman, the reality, we have to account for this element of unreality in the real. If the unreal is not a fact of a being, it must be an act or a formation of consciousness and is there not then a status of a degree of consciousness in which its acts and formations are wholly or partly unreal. If this unreality cannot be attributed to an original cosmic illusion, to Maya, there is still in the universe itself a power of illusion, of ignorance. It is in the power of the mind to conceive things that are not real. It is in its power even to create things that are not real or not wholly real. Its very view of itself and universe is a construction that is not wholly real or wholly unreal. Where does this element of unreality begin? And where does it stop? And what is its cause and what ensue on the removal of both the cause and the consequence? Even if all cosmic existence is not in itself unreal, cannot that description be applied to the world of ignorance in which we live? This world of constant change and birth and death and frustration and suffering, and does not the removal of the ignorance abolish for us the reality of the world which it creates, or is not a departure out of it the natural and only issue? This would be valid if our ignorance were a pure ignorance without any element of truth or knowledge in it. But in fact, our consciousness is a mixture of the true and the false. Its acts and creations are not a pure invention, a baseless structure. The structure it builds, its form of things or form of the universe, is not a mixture of reality or and the unreal, so much as a half comprehension, a half expression of the real, and since all consciousness is force and therefore potentially creative, our ignorance has the result of wrong creation, wrong manifestation, wrong action, or misconceived and misdirected energy of the being. All world existence is manifestation, but our ignorance is the agent of a partial, limited, and ignorant manifestation, in part an expression, but in part also a disguise of the original being, consciousness, and delight of existence. If this state of things is permanent and unalterable, if our world must always move in this circle, if some ignorance is the cause of all things, and all action here, and not a condition and circumstance, then indeed the cessation of individual ignorance could only come by an escape of an individual from world being, and a cessation of the cosmic ignorance would be the destruction of world being. But if this world has at its root an evolutionary principle, if our ignorance is a half knowledge evolving toward knowledge, another account and another issue and spiritual result of our existence in material nature, a greater manifestation here becomes possible.
Yeah. So, one can get lost in words because it is a very big para. But you remember one thing, the fact of gradation. This is the reality you must see. At the highest level, absolutely gradation is positive in every way. And when it comes down, the gradation becomes almost zero, okay? It becomes negative. If you remember in this way, then everything becomes possible to understand. So now if you take consciousness at the highest level, full consciousness. At the lowest level, almost zero, okay? Then you take reality. Apply this concept of gradation to everything. It is valid. Take for instance liberty, okay? I am taking two things, liberty and reality, which is not absolutely something concrete. We have to use our imagination. So if you take liberty, at the highest level, liberty is full freedom. But as it keeps coming down into matter, liberty disappears and there is only law. Everything is bound like a prisoner, okay? You are absolutely without. So now you apply that concept to reality. At the highest level, totally real. And when it comes down into the inconscient, it becomes unreal, total unreality. And in the middle, there is mixture of reality and unreality. That is what he is saying in the para. So if you remember that gradation, the principle of gradation is very, very important to understand the nature of the universe and nature of the divine reality. Okay, so this is, and that is pictured. The image is very, very clear in the atmosphere and also the sea. Okay, when you go to the deepest part of the sea in the Pacific Ocean, it is supposed to be about 7 miles deep. Okay, so at the lowest level, darkness. There is total darkness. At the higher level, 1 meter or even above, there is light, even if it's not there. But as you keep going down, the light becomes less and less and less, and that is one example of the manifestation of Satchidananda in the world. The other is the atmosphere. We have got a dense atmosphere at our level. As we keep going up, okay, the density goes on decreasing, decreasing, decreasing until when you are on the Mount Everest, okay, which is 5 or 6 miles up, or maybe 7 miles, I don't remember, 29,000 feet. So what happens? The air becomes so rare, the density has reduced that we have to use an oxygen cylinder. So that's one thing. And if you go out into space, there is no air at all. Okay, so you have to wear a space suit. So this is the density becoming less and less. And now you can apply that principle to gravitation also. At the lowest level, gravitation is full. As you keep going up, gravitation disappears. You can float in the space. Pardon? Anyway, so this is what he is explaining in this paragraph. So essentially, if you remember the gradation of everything, consciousness, force and all, then it's very easy to understand this. If you want to go into each word, we'll do that next. It's tomorrow. Okay? So because now it is 8:34, so we have got only 1 minute left. So keep in mind this gradation. Gradation is a very important principle. With that, we can understand everything. And usually there are two examples of the gradation, the sea and the atmosphere. Okay. So shall we stop here today? Okay then. Tomorrow.
Thank you, Rangat.
Merci
Thank
for
you, Rangat.
Yasmin will not be there tomorrow. Yasmin will be in Pondi.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Gurumar everybody.
Gurumar Rangada.
Have a nice day.
Thank you, Rangada.
Gurumar.